Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
The number one thing that contributes to customer loyalty is emotions. So move onward and upward faster by gaining significantly deeper insight and understanding of your customer journey and personas with emotional intelligence. With your empathy mapping workshop, you'll learn how to evoke and influence the right customer emotions that generate improved customer loyalty and reduce your cost to operate. Get over your emotional hump now by going to empathymapping.com to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I get the opportunity to talk about something that's been nagging me for quite a while with somebody who can give me the answer. Shawn Vij was born and raised in the Metro Detroit area. He is the oldest of three with a younger sister and brother, Sue and Dave. His father worked as an engineer for Ford for many years and is now enjoying his pension. His father was a part-time professor as well as his mother raised three children. His parents moved to the United States from India in 1968, looking for a better life for themselves as well as family. Shawn grew up in a very segregated area and was faced with a lot of racism in the Detroit area. He found himself in lots of fights growing up, but despite this, his family was influential in focusing on an education as the key to getting out of living in these areas. His Indian culture was influential as well, but it also became overbearing at times, such as the idea that you must be a doctor and marry an Indian princess and make lots of money. Unfortunately, he learned the hard way that happiness does not equate to the cultural hinges. At the age of 29, Shawn left the Midwest and moved to San Francisco during the dot-com boom, and then to Seattle, where he's lived since 2005. Shawn is an accomplished business leader who has over 25 years of industry and consulting experience. He's worked in various leadership positions for Ford Motor Company, Ernst & Young, Visa, Deloitte Consulting, Microsoft, and Intel Corporation. He holds an MBA from Purdue University, a master's in engineering from the University of Michigan, and a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Michigan Technological University, and is the author of Moral Fiber, Awakening Corporate Consciousness. He currently lives just east of Seattle with his daughter and a reddish Labrador where he enjoys writing, wine, coffee, and cooking. Shawn Vij, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I think so. I hope so.
I'm sure you are. But, I've given our listeners a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Sure, Jim. Sure. And first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. My current passion, I would say, has to be being a father. I do have a 14-year-old daughter, and I mean, like most fathers, they love their children. And I think the passion there is I don't teach her what to think, but I'm learning on teaching her how to think on her own, if you will, and have her learn from my everyday actions, if you will. Right. So be compassionate, be caring, help others, and most of all, stand up for what you believe in what is right. Kids, it just takes me back when I see the stuff that she's going through in high school and seeing it's different, right? It's the same, but it's different. The same nuances, the same bullying, all of that stuff is the same. It's just in a different approach. So, but what I believe in is living your values and having the courage to never back down. And that's what I try to instill in her and everybody around her and her friends. And so that's my current passion. That's my current passion.
That resonates so much with me because I have a 14-year-old daughter. I grew up in the Chicago area, in an area where, even though I'm white, I was a minority. So a lot of the fights and a lot of the, standing up for your morals, despite, what was going on around you was an important thing. And oftentimes I didn't do that. I succumbed to the peer pressures and, the social influences like so many kids do today. Like you said, some of these things are just so much the same, yet somewhat different. But I don't know about you, but with my daughter, when I try to share with her the things that I've experienced and some of those same core fundamental things, I'm still just dad.
Yeah, totally. And that's a great feeling. And so I just love that. Right. So I don't know how you feel about your daughter, but like now it's like, I guess she's at the teenage. I feel like an Uber driver for her sometimes. It's one of those where you drop me off at the mall, Dad, pick me up, but don't come in here, but they still love you. Right. And so it's a great feeling. And I try to also I'm also, you adapt to it and you give them the room to grow. And that's what I'm learning too. Right. At the early ages, they're more dependent. And so now it's about how do we start gaining that independence, but in a very confident way. And so that's something I try to instill. And it's actually a learning for me. This passion is a learning for me. So I love being a student of life and a student of all these things that happen. And so I think raising children and it's just amazing. It's a great learning experience for myself.
Well, and and what we're really talking about here, it may not seem like it's important, to the workplace or to, organizations and corporations and heck, governments for that matter. But it is, because we often find that a lot of kids aren't getting some of these things that we're giving ours. And then they're making it into the workplace. Many of them have actually come many generations before and created a lot of the problems that we currently have in existence. And so, the thing that's been nagging me so long that I think, your book and looking through it and the things that you're addressing, maybe you have some insight that you can share. But a neighbor of mine was a longtime dean of a business school, and I was talking to him about ethics and morality, and he stops me and he says, "You know what? Corporations don't care about ethics." He goes, they don't feel that it actually makes them any money.
Yeah. I think it depends on the corporation. It depends on, I don't want to make a blanket statement or an ignorant statement, but it just depends. It depends on certain companies. And I'm gravitating now, having written this book and changing myself and the way I think, I'm starting to gravitate to companies that do. Now, granted, companies are there for the bottom line, right? So the companies are like, look, I'm a capitalist, right? But I'm a pure capitalist, but I'm a conscious capitalist. And if you go back and you look at Adam Smith and you see how capitalism is defined, they do talk about boundaries. And so that's what I mean by conscious capitalism. I believe in free trade. I believe in these things, but doing it the right way. Right? It's like a match. Like it's like, a football game. I mean, if we're unethical in the practice and the play, what good does that do for anybody? Right? So what I guess my point is I believe in the competition. I believe in the bottom line, but how we do it is so critical, and what we do. And so communities and you're starting to see companies understand that more, especially they're becoming more, the world is becoming smaller. The world is becoming smaller, and you're seeing a diversity skill set within the companies and within their customer base. And therefore, that community drives the culture and the behavior of the company. And so as millennials come in and they stand for these things, outside of just profits, but people, that becomes a shared value. And so you're starting to see companies gravitate to that because I would say inherently they are interested in the bottom line, but they're saying, well, okay, let's see. These people, these customers, our employees care about this. We can still get the bottom line. So yeah, so I agree with the professor, but I think how they're going about it is in a more tactful human way now.
I think that's a really interesting point. In the book, you talk about corporate suffering. And you talk about these 4 diseases associated with corporate suffering. Share those with us.
Yeah, so you have, what I call deception, detraction, doubt. These are the things that, discrimination. And they I mean, I'm not going to sit here and define them all. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. But I categorize these in a way to share the outcomes of what I call the 4 Ds in a company, but where they come from is where we need to get to. So what I mean is so you discriminate. So having studied a lot about Buddhism and after meeting the Dalai Lama, I started doing that. I just started exploring that. And I started seeing that in Buddhism, they talk about the 3 poisons, and they talk about it a lot in their literature. And it's anger, greed, and ignorance. And they talk about it at the individual level. And I believe after, having, just trying to connect the dots, right? I started seeing that, gosh, these 3 things, they are derivatives. They're a mixed cocktail, poisonous cocktail. And as we build on that, they drive those 4 behaviors, those 4 Ds, if you will. So, and I talk about that in the book and I go into it a little bit more, but yeah, so I get surgical on and then I talk about how do we manage those emotions? How do we manage those behaviors?
Now, when you start, one of the things when you start talking about, these, those particular 4 diseases, you start getting into how individuals also, start having issues with these if it does not align with them internally. And in the book, at the very beginning, you talk about that this book is actually made for the following people: those who feel trapped in their job, those that are focused to compromise their values at the office, those who agonize over becoming someone they are not, those who are ambushed in corporate politics cast aside, those who seek to be conscious change agents at the office, and those who seek a greater purpose in their professional lives. So I have to ask, if you're not one of those, what are you?
If you're not one of those, you're extremely happy. But no, I guess, I mean, you're right. Everybody has some of that, right? So I would say this book is for, a lot of people, and it's the degree of it. And so, I mean, look, every day you're not going to be happy at work. Every day we're dealing with human beings, and how you navigate through that. And some environments are more toxic than others. We've all been there, and we've all had that terrible boss, right? I mean, there's movies made about it, terrible bosses. I mean, we've all been through that, but how you deal with it, how you manage that is what I talk about. I mean, how do you go about that? How do you handle a very toxic environment? And so then that's you're right. I mean, I think it applies to a lot of people, and not just at work. It's also at home as well, in your personal lives.
As you were talking, I also started thinking about being that, that leader of other people that, I happen to, identify with the people who this book is for. Yet, I'm feeling that pressure, and I have to be that buffer. I have to be that deflector. How does someone actually, when they're kind of feeling stuck in that situation and knowing that they don't want to disseminate or affect or impact, all of their reports, how can they not do that?
Look, I talk about it, but the most important thing, look, there's a lot of organizations, and I've been in a lot of them, and I've consulted with a lot of them where they're driven by fear, right? And that's not a healthy way. Yeah, it gets to the bottom line. And so with that fear, that anxiety, the unknown, it's very hard to make a stand, right, at times, because we also have a tendency we cage ourselves. We cage ourselves to things that think are going to make us happy, like buying that car, buying that house, and we become dependent, right? We become dependent on the job, and so we start to lose sight. We start to lose sight of what's important, and so the job shackles us, and we are so dependent on that now, and we're so fearful. If you're in a fearful environment, so the last thing you want to do is make a stand for what you think is right, or listening to your inner voice, because you're fearful of losing everything that you've caged yourself with. And so that takes courage. And so I truly believe the toughest thing, look, human beings, children, we just talked about children. We need to trust ourselves more. Human beings are very resilient. It's amazing. I mean, if you look at all the success stories, a lot of people, they've lost their jobs and they've started huge companies. So I guess what I'm saying is walk into the unknown. Don't be fearful. It'll be okay. In fact, you will be stronger. And that's what I talk about is in the suffering, you will find that inner strength. That is the key. And that allows you to build courage and strength to make the decisions. If you see something that's wrong, you can so I guess I'm getting pretty deep in your question, but when you see something that's wrong, either say something, make a choice, or just leave, and you'll find something else. Companies don't own you. It's at-will employment, and you can play that on them as well. And it goes both ways. And I'm not saying you want to do that. You want to be tactful. You can do it. I had a really good, so I in my book, I interviewed the head HR for Starbucks, and she had told me some really good advice. And I've seen her in action, actually. I've seen her talk to executives. And she says, as long as we're so fearful of, if we see something that's going wrong, be direct, be transparent, be timely, and be calm. And that to me was very thought-provoking, because I started acting on that. And it's so funny. We actually put our own curtains up. We actually, you would be amazed that the recipient would be, it tends to be more open about it, actually. And they're more respectful. They respect you more for that. They appreciate you more. A good leader, right? Not looking for the yes woman or yes man, if you will. And so, and you know what? That actually, if they respect you for it, then you're in a good environment. And if they don't, then you need to leave. Now, if you were yelling and screaming and said you shouldn't do that, that's not the right way to do it either, right? So if you're, like she said, be respectful, be timely, be transparent, be honest, and and that usually works.
I think that's a very good point. Now, I mean, this book, and even the way you started the book, talking about, meeting the Dalai Lama and, the impact that had on you. And I mean, gosh, I can imagine that, there's a lot of quotes that you have that we can all learn from and gain some, insight from and have some, energy from. Is there one or two that you can share with us?
Yeah, no, the most, I mean, I have an epigraph that I'll leave that one alone. That's a powerful quote, but the quote that hits me the most, especially, I think it's kind of is inspired me to write this, is from the Dalai Lama. And he says, in my own experience, the period of greatest gain and in knowledge and experience is the most difficult period in one's life. Through a difficult period, he says, you can learn, you can develop inner strength, determination, and courage to face the problem. And he says, who gives you this chance? Your enemy. And what's powerful is he told me this. Our greatest enemy is ourselves. So obviously you can learn from your enemy. He's talking about the Chinese, but he's also talking about ourselves, our inner self. And what I talked about, the anger, the greed, the ignorance, and finding that balance. And so that to me was a powerful quote.
Well, and I think, you even end your book as far as that is concerned, and you come back full circle and saying being true to yourself. And that's how you ended it. And I know even when you were starting to talk about, the opening of the book and, your own trials and tribulations and meeting him and, there's humps that we have to get over. And you talk about one big one at the beginning of the book, but is there one that you can share that we can learn from?
I mean, I think the biggest one, I mean, like you mentioned, and appreciate the introduction. I mean, I've worked 25 years in industry in various capacities in consulting, and all the way from, working at the Rouge at Ford, at Henry Ford's on the ground. I mean, I worked on the line, started working on the line, and then I ran billion-dollar relationships for Microsoft. And so, I mean, I've had the opportunity to work across various capacities, but I think the biggest hump or the biggest learning I learned I started to lose myself, I would say early on in my career. I started to, some people call ethical fading or psychic numbing, if you will, where I began to distance myself from my core values. And I let this excessive greed take over and these toxic environments take over. And so what happened was I had an old boss. And this old boss, she found something, I found something that was shady in the books. And I was new and I was, just out of business school. And I was like, hey, I don't know, this doesn't seem right. And it just didn't feel, how it doesn't sit well. And you're just like, okay, I won't get into the details, but the accounting practice, there was something going on. And I was hired to do something else, but yet she was making me the accountant for this project. And I was wondering why. And so I was kind of like, wow, this is what you call the guinea pig or the scapegoat or, like later. And so you realize later on, so long story short, I started asking a lot of people in the different hallways, and they didn't like that. So she let me go, took me into an office, and I walked through the experience actually in the book. And I think that one, the thing that hurt me, the thing that got to me, the biggest hump, if you will, the thing that hit me is that she says to me, as she was tearing, she says to me, this is business. It's not personal. And I truly believed at that point, business was just business. And so I started to take that on, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is I learned the hard way, if you will, because we made compromises every day. Right? We make compromises every day and at every level of the company. I truly believe we're human beings and companies are made up of humans, right? So I believe people are a company's greatest asset, so I truly believe that it's all, humanity plays a big role and it's always personal. And that's the difference. If you take that approach, then I think you can approach business in a different way, in a human way.
So when you start talking about, the experiences that you've had, the work that you've been doing, the companies that you're working with, writing of this book, your daughter, you have a lot of things going on. But if you were to say you had one goal, what would it be?
Yeah, I'm tired of watching countless people suffering, right, and compromising the values for the sake of a dollar, right? I believe in making money, but you just shouldn't have to suffer for it. And I wanted to help people be more successful without feeling trapped in toxic environments. I truly believe we can raise a consciousness at work, if you will, and so and that which leads to greater productivity by raising what I would say the human condition through conscious capitalism. And so that to me is a big goal. How do we raise the human condition? Everybody has the right. I believe in capitalism, but I believe it needs to be fair in the sense that if you work at it, everybody should have the same equal right to work and make money and do well. But if you don't, that's on you. But you should at least have the right to do that. And so that's why I believe in this. And so when companies and are excessively greedy and they shut that out and only them benefiting from it. And so I guess what I'm saying is like an area for example, microfinancing, right? Providing people in third world countries the opportunity to make money and do good with it. And so, that to me is one of the biggest goals, is to raise the human condition through conscious capitalism. And so I've been working with folks. You look at companies like, John Mackey and at Whole Foods, and, you see that's this conscious capitalism movement. It's a good thing.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Shawn, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust, rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Shawn Vij, are you ready to hoe down?
I'm ready to hoe down.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Taking more risks. I truly believe, we need to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. And when we get comfortable, we get complacent. So jump in the pool, make sure there's water there, right? But be calculated and learn how to swim.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Take the best from everyone. And what I mean by that is take the best quality from everyone you meet. Look, this is not rocket science. Not all people are perfect, but we know what's good and bad. So take the best.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Hustle. I'm from Detroit. True Detroit grit. I don't quit ever. When you fall down, you need to get back up. And I like being that underdog with a purpose, not just to complain, but truly to have an impact.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Wisdom, awareness, taking all the vantage points. I never used to do that, and so now I do.
What would be one book that you'd recommend for our listeners? And it could be from any genre. Of course, we're going to put a link to Moral Fiber, Awakening Corporate Consciousness on your show notes page as well.
All right. Well, then we got that one out of the way. So I guess the book that I really, truly enjoy, and I've worked with him a lot, is the book is called The Art of Happiness. It's by Howard Cutler. And he's also done one derivative for The Art of Happiness at Work.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Shawn Vij. And Vij is Vij. Okay, Shawn, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25. And you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take everything back. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. The one skill I would take back is to be true to yourself. Never lie to yourself. Right, Jim? We never lie to ourselves every day. We lie to ourselves every day. And it's just the degree of it. Take the time to know yourself and love yourself, but also at the same time, take accountability for your own actions. Listen to that inner voice. Do what's right. I truly believe life is a full circle and karma does exist. And when you're true to yourself, it's amazing. Doors just seem to open.
Shawn, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, they can reach me out at www.moralfiber.world. I'm also on Facebook you can reach me at Shawn Moral Fiber at shawnvij.moralfiber.
Shawn Vij, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.